going to quickly cut across to Amit Shah, who's just reached Jagdalpur to give his condolences there. You have Union Home Minister Amit Shah, who's just reached Jagdalpur in connection with the Naxal attack here. He's there in honor of the 22 martyrs. In fact, Amit Shah has just reached Jagdalpur, where he's paying his condolences. He's also all set to hold a high-level meet. Here is the wreath-laying ceremony to pay respects to the martyred personnel at the police lines. Amit Shah, who's just reached Jagdalpur. Remember, 22 security personnel were martyred. A Naxal attack, the worst over the last decade. Here's Amit Shah, who's come to pay visit and be part of the wreath-laying ceremony there to pay respects to the martyred personnel. Visuals coming in of Amit Shah, who's just reached Jagdalpur. In fact, the wreath-laying ceremony, it will be laid on the mortal remains of at least 14 security personnel, while tributes also to be paid to other deceased Jawans there at Bijapur district headquarters as well. Let me quickly cut across. Kamaljeet Sandhu joining us live from Delhi. Kamaljeet, do take us through visuals coming in of Amit Shah, the Home Minister in Jagdalpur, the wreath-laying ceremony to begin. Take us through the details.
This is a somber occasion. Remember, Amit Shah cutting short his Assam visit, flying back to Delhi, and today he's in Jagdalpur. His first stop there to pay homage to the 22 of those martyrs who've been killed. Remember, these mortal remains have been placed here before they can go back home. It's the final journey. But here, the Home Minister obviously giving out a message that he's very much present. He's going to be taking a review of the meeting. But yes, once the forces have been there, and remember, all these mortal remains wrapped up in tricolor, giving indication that Home Ministry is backing all the anti-naxal operation. Now remember, this is at a time where a huge setback has taken place. Remember, there will be ceremonies here in Jagdalpur as well as Bijapur. Clearly, this is going to raise many questions, and we've seen leaders like Rahul Gandhi raising questions regarding operational failure. But here, it's not just about politics. This is also a moment where the Home Minister takes cognizance, going there, personally visiting there. He will be chairing a high-level meeting. But right now, in Jagdalpur, this is a moment of quiet. This is a moment of somber occasion. Paying homage to the martyrs of Bijapur encounter in less than 48 hours since the firing began. And in 2 days, the toll mounted to around 22, 23. This is a huge setback. And Home Ministry has given a go-ahead for the anti-naxal operations. And remember, this summer, there was supposed to be a decisive battle. Now, this could be a temporary setback, but we've been told by sources, and this is what Amit Shah also told reporters yesterday, that there will be a firm resolve to fight on and take on Naxal. The challenge does remain with security forces. Remember, when forces went into Tarim, into the neighboring forest, they were in turn ambushed in what was a well-prepared encounter. And for several hours, the exchange of fire went on. But as a result, we know that 22 martyred soldiers, the bodies are now being brought here to Jagdalpur. and some to Bijapur. So clearly, this is a moment where the forces would know that this is not a moment that they can kind of step back. This is a time where they will have to put their heads together. There has to be operational planning, and this is being done by Hidma. He is the top commander of People's Liberation for Guerrilla of Army. So clearly, this is where the 1 battalion has once again hit back at security forces. And every now and then, and barring last year, which was a COVID year, we've seen major attacks really take place. The tactics of the Mao is changing. But right now, when security forces have been told and pushed and egged on by Home Ministry to take on Maoists, remember all support coming in from Home Ministry. The front has to be led by the state forces and the assistance coming in from the paramilitary forces like the CRPF in several areas like the ITBP. But clearly, this is a mandate. And paying homage here is Union Home Minister Amit Shah. There have been many who've been questioning his presence. Several of those who said that enough time was being spent by Home Minister in poll-bound states while he should have been concentrating here. So yes, there is a political angle to it. But right now, as at the helm of affairs, the Union Home Minister will be taking a huge review meeting with security forces. A part of it he took yesterday when he met the Home Secretary, the IB Chief, and the Special Secretary, DG of the CRPF. Today he has a different set of meetings. But yes, he will be going and meeting, and later on in the evening also meeting the injured. So yes, this is going to be a first-hand review as well as first-hand meeting of the soldiers, where he not only knows from the officials what happened, but he will be speaking to the soldiers, giving them a morale boost, looking at the future strategy, because this is emerging as one of the biggest challenges. Remember, a number of years ago, Dr. Manmohan Singh, as the Prime Minister, had called Naxals as the biggest security challenge for the country. And now we've seen over a period of time such big encounters taking place. The casualty has been extremely high. 31 soldiers have been injured. But clearly, this is a somber moment and a moment for Home Ministry to know that whatever it takes, whether it is logistics, whether it is manpower, remember additional boots have been put on the ground, all this will be done. But clearly, the onus is on the joint forces, both of the state police force. Remember, the casualties have been an equal distribution of the DRF, the STF, as well as the Cobra battalion, including some of the Basaguda battalion boys who've been the local tribals who've been inducted by CRPF. So clearly, at this point of time, when Home Ministry, along with top officials, visits the spot, visits Jagdalpur, he's sending out a clear message.
Well, absolutely. Here we're looking at Amit Shah, live visuals coming in. 22 Jawans killed in a horrific encounter there with Naxals in Sukma, Bijapur border area of Chhattisgarh. Home Minister Amit Shah now has just reached Jagdalpur to take stock of this situation. He's also offered his tribute to the martyred Jawans. He will also be meeting with the injured personnel later in the afternoon who are currently admitted at various hospitals there. In fact, the state police all set to submit its report on the incident to the Home Ministry today. On Sunday, Amit Shah chaired a review meeting with senior officials of his ministry, Intelligence Bureau and Central Armed Police Forces. Amit Shah assured the nation that sacrifice of martyrs will not go in vain. Meanwhile, 1 Jawan is still missing. 31 soldiers are injured in the ambush by Naxals. 25 to 30 Naxals have also lost their lives in this encounter. Chhattisgarh Chief Minister Bhupesh Baghel met with the injured Jawans earlier in the hospital. In fact, Amit Shah now part of this wreath-laying ceremony. There you have it, Amit Shah, part of this wreath-laying ceremony. 22 fatalities reported. CRPF lost about 8 men, including 7 commandos of the Cobra, the CRPF's elite unit, and 1 Jawan of the Basaguda battalion. 8 of the other deceased were from the District Reserve Guard and 6 from the Special Task Force. Going back to Kamaljit. Kamaljit, here's the wreath-laying ceremony where we've lost 22 Jawans, many of them still injured. Here, they're all set to submit a detailed report on the incident to the Home Ministry, as Amit Shah is present in Jagdalpur right now. He's going to be visiting those injured as well. Take us through the report that's now going to be submitted on the incident that went by. Give us a glimpse of the joint operation that took place, resulting in these fatalities.
Well, yes, this is an important moment because remember, cutting short his visit to Assam, he came back to Delhi where he took a meeting. This is also very poignant because this is his first meeting to Chhattisgarh. Remember, this is a key state as far as the fight against Naxals is concerned. We are talking about taking on the Naxal leadership, the commanders. Remember, only 1 body was recovered. The encounter details are very specific. There was specific information which had come in with the joint forces, after which an operation was launched in Bijapur, in the Tarem village. This is when the forces went in, whether the information was valid or not, because remember, as far as this entire incident is concerned, remember there was input which came in as far as the security forces were concerned. They were looking at information on Hidma, and when the forces went in there, that is when they found out he was not there. Instead, the Naxals had taken position at heights, and later on, we also saw that there was firing which was done in all sides, and that is when DRG, STF, and the Cobra battalions, which were in the strike 2, which is there were 3 teams which were retaliating. That is when the retaliation really happened, and we've been told an equal number of Naxals have been killed, their bodies being taken away on tractors. But remember, this is just one of those things because the bodies have not been recovered by forces. Clearly, they are going to be
stay with us. I'm going to quickly cut across to Gaurav Sawant as well, joining us more on that. Gaurav, here's Amit Shah, who's cut short his pole-bound visit. He's here in Jagdalpur, visiting, in fact, paying his respects to the 22 martyred Jawans. We're looking at least 22 Jawans who were killed, 31 of them injured. The wreath-laying ceremony that's currently underway. Amit Shah is present. A full report, a detailed report on the incident is going to be submitted to Amit Shah in due course of time, as he's also going to be visiting several injured Jawans who are currently lodged at various hospitals there. If you can give us an insight into the details of this wreath-laying ceremony, and post this, Amit Shah holding a high-level meet there.
Navila, there's a big responsibility on Amit Shah's shoulders at this point of time, because this is one of the biggest attacks by Naxals, but not the first. You'd recall in 2010, in the Chintalnar forest, the Maoists had similarly ambushed the CRPF personnel and killed 76 of them. Again in Chhattisgarh, the Maoists had eliminated the entire leadership of the Congress party. They, in 2019, targeted the BJP MLA in an ambush. In 2020, which is last year, 17 security personnel had been killed in an ambush, and once again in 2021, CRPF, DRG and Cobra Commando soldiers have been ambushed and killed. This just shows that over a decade, the UPA government had talked about an operation to neutralize these red terrorists. Remember, then Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh had called the Maoists the biggest threat to India's internal security, and now it's the same responsibility on Amit Shah's shoulders to eliminate red terror and eliminate gun-wielding terrorists and that ideology that supports this terror, which the BJP likes to call the urban Naxals. They need to be countered effectively, is what officials in the government have been telling India today. The point is, wreath-laying ceremony is just symbolic. To ensure this does not happen again is a big challenge. And the fact that it's been happening regularly, routinely, despite CRPF and the Chhattisgarh police making major inroads, it is the Sukma belt which remains the hotspot, the core of the Naxal, strength, armed strength. This is where they need to be neutralized, and whether it is heavier use of technology, weapons, in better intelligence-based operations, because this, according to information that's filtering in, Nabila, was an ambush that the security forces walked in. So there is this star that they used very extensively to listen into conversations, and that is where, as Kamaljeet was just telling us, there was intelligence about the Naxal commander Hidma, who incidentally has a reward of 25 lakhs on his head, that he was in this area. There was intelligence about movement of big groups, and that is where a counter-terror operation was mounted. The question remains, Nabila, if there was so much intelligence, did they walk into a trap? And if they knew there would be something like this, why didn't they have a mechanism to extract soldiers from an ambush, to extract combatants from an ambush, and mount a counter ambush? So considering you've been going through this situation for over a decade, why do our security forces keep walking into an ambush and not knowing how to withdraw? Also, training and tactics. Apparently, some of the men, they fled after the operation, according to initial reports that came in, that the terrorists had so much time that they could remove bulletproof jackets, arms, ammunition, and even shoes of the slain, CRPF and DRG personnel. Now, all of these raise very critical questions that the Home Minister at the center and multiple states, Naxal violence affected states, need to sit together to counter, Nabila.
Right. Gaurav, here we're looking at the entire incident now taking a huge political turn, with opposition parties condemning the government of the day for intelligence failure on those officials did not catch that the number of Naxals who were located in that area and how heavily armed they were. Like you did mention, a lot of answers, a lot of stock to be taken. Is there a plan in place to be probing into this matter furthermore?
There is such incident, it is claimed that there will be a detailed investigation and lessons learned. But the fact that from 2010 to 2021, there have been multiple such attacks that have taken place point to very serious questions. That's point one. Point two, this blame game between the center and the state, where the BJP is blaming Chief Minister Bhupesh Baghel of campaigning in Assam and not being here when such a major incident took place, and the state blaming the center for not providing adequate resources, including unmanned aerial vehicles and helicopters for counter operations. All of these actually are self-defeating, because ultimately it is India as a country that is getting severely affected, and our soldiers of the CRPF, of the District Reserve Guard, they are the ones who are being killed. 22 families will not have their bread earners anymore. So all of these raise very serious questions where the center and the state, not just Chhattisgarh, but Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, West Bengal, Odisha, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, all of these Naxal violence-affected states need to operate together, have a core team, have a task force. Perhaps, as the Congress was suggesting yesterday on India Today, you need a special, a junior minister for internal security to be hands-on to deal with this 24/7. All of that is required so that this menace can be dealt with at multiple levels, not just militarily, but also economically, where you need to put in development in this area. Also counter the ideology that gives intellectual cover fire to this violence. All of that needs to be done very effectively and in a sustained manner. Unfortunately, that doesn't appear to be happening.
Absolutely. Gaurav, do stay with us. I'm going to quickly cut across to the significance of Basaguda. In fact, Amit Shah currently is at the Naxal den. Here's a quick look at the significance of Basaguda. It's the last camp of security forces near Basaguda. In fact, this Naxal liberated zone starts from here. Now, the area near to Maoist commander Hidma's home, this is the area which is close to Hidma's home. We're looking at Cobra CRPF camp right at the bank of the river Chintavagu. In fact, Chintavagu is locally known as River of Worry. The camps here house about 2,000 men of Cobra as well as the CRPF. Looking at this kind of deployment, Gaurav, back to you. We're looking at the significance of Basaguda, the kind of deployment here around these areas. It's but mandatory for extra vigilance to have been in place. Instead of post-mortem, precautionary measures would have saved lives of several of our Jawans.
They indeed would have. In fact, because this is the hotbed of armed equipment and perhaps, one of the last few strongholds. This is where the CRPF has already deployed additional resources, and on the basis of those additional resources, they've been mounting a series of operations, and that is why the frequency of attacks have gone down. Unfortunately, the intensity of those attacks have not gone down. Also, the fact each time there is a lull, Nabila, it is assumed by security forces that they're on top of the situation, perhaps not realizing that that is the time that the Naxals or the Maoists or the Red Terrorists, they're actually regrouping, rearming, getting access to more sophisticated weapons, and then organizing a pinpointed attack. Look at the information that came in this time. Specific intelligence about Hidima hiding in those areas, a location based on which these forces mounted an operation. They actually walked into an ambush where the terrorists were on higher ground on 3 sides. So the security forces walked into an ambush. When they were retreating, they were targeted. This is exactly what has happened in 4 different occasions in the past. And that brings the question that why haven't lessons been learned at an institutional basis, that in case you're returning from an operation, there could be either an IED blast or an ambush the moment there are people on higher ground. When the army carries out such operations, the army also occupies higher ground when soldiers go in. And that is just how the army operates. You've learned lessons. There is an institutional mechanism. The CRPF sincerely needs to answer this question, and the state police, that is there that institutional mechanism? If terrorists attack you from a higher ground on 3 different occasions, why don't forces occupy that higher ground, or have unmanned aerial vehicles to scan those places, or have helicopters to keep an eye?
Right.
You can't afford to keep losing lives, whether
Absolutely,
it's 76 in Chintalnar or 22 here.
Gaurav, stay with us. I'm going to quickly cut across to Abhishek Balla as well, joining us. Abhishek, here we're looking at Amit Shah, part of the wreath-laying ceremony, paying last respects to the 22 martyred Jawans. Several of them still injured, lodged at various hospitals there. It's shocking how the Maoists use machine guns, rocket launchers to target our forces. Currently, rescue operations are underway. If you can give us a glimpse into exactly at what stage have the rescue operations reached now?
Well, Nabila, there were initial reports that there were several security force personnel who are missing, but they have all been accounted for now. But if you look into the nature of this ambush that was laid, and it's keeping in trend with what has been happening over the last decade or so. Whenever there is a Naxal attack on the security forces, the casualties are in big numbers. It's seldom that, there are 1 or 2 security personnel killed. The Naxals always lay an ambush that ensures that the death toll is extremely high. And once again, something similar has happened. What is different this time from the recent past is that there was no IED used. And in fact, it was a trap laid by the Maoists when they knew that an operation is being launched based on specific intelligence. Now, there are reports, according to the assessments that have been made, that perhaps these intelligence inputs in itself could have been a trap, because, it's highly unlikely that such accurate information about a very senior Naxal leader, be it human int or tech int, comes up. And that's the reason why, because it was so accurate, perhaps it could have been taken with a pinch of salt, that a very intense operation was launched. But the security forces were in for a surprise when they realized that they have been outnumbered by the other side. And that's when there was a gun battle from a very, very close range. It appears that the Naxals have been training their cadre once again to sustain long gun battles, fierce gun battles, because that's exactly what happened here, more than 3 hours. And, I've also got information from sources, and that's something that India Today has reported, that because it was a fierce, long gun battle, there were several injuries. Some of the personnel actually shed their load. They took off their food and water that they were carrying to make sure that they can carry their injured colleagues. And in that process, many actually died because of dehydration. So that's a scary thing. Also, the proximity was so close that one of the inspectors, had his hand lost. The Naxals chopped his hand before killing him. So it shows that how they are intensifying their training for a pitched gun battle and also man-to-man combat.
Right. Abhishek, here we are looking at Amit Shah currently, part of the wreath-laying ceremony. He's going to take stock of the situation. A full detailed report is going to be submitted to the Home Ministry today on the incident. Now, while Amit Shah is going to be visiting several hospitals, he's also going to be holding a high-level meet there in a little while from now. I'm going to take you through exactly the Naxal commander here, who's the man behind this entire operation here, the ambush here. Now, who is Madhavi Hidma? He is a 40-year-old tribal from Sukma's Puvarti village. In fact, he's joined the Red Rebels in 1990s. In fact, he's the top Naxal commander, one of the most wanted. He heads the battalion of People's Liberation Guerrilla Army. We're looking at him being the member of Maoists of Dandakaranya Special Zonal Committee as well. In fact, he's the state in charge of CPM Miltia actions, and he heads the Naxal attacks in Sukma district, and he's known for fierce and deadly ambushes. In fact, he also carries a reward of 40 lakh rupees and is charge sheeted in BJP MLA Bhim Mandavi's murder case. Now, this is the man who's currently planned the entire ambush. He seems to be at the helm of affairs. I'm going to quickly cut across. Abhishek Balla, if you can give us some insight into this man, Hidma. He seems to already be carrying a cash prize on him, a reward for his whereabouts. We're looking at this man being at the helm of affairs of planning this entire ambush. If he is the top commander, he's there, he's out there, and knowledge of him was very well known with our security forces. What stopped them from actually reaching out to this man and tracing his whereabouts? How long have they been trying to trace him? Where is he right now?
Well, Nabila, if you look at the sequence of events, it clearly shows that the Naxals had prior information, intelligence about the operations that were being launched to nab or to get to Hidma. Hidma has been one of the top Naxal leaders who's been operating in Chhattisgarh for some years now. And there were inputs about his whereabouts, about his movements in exactly this area for the last 10 days. And that's the reason why, there are a lot of brainstorming that's happening now, lots of discussions in the security establishment. What really led to this fiasco? Because if there was intelligence, forces should have gotten to him. What is it that the Naxals knew before the operations could be launched? That is the crucial question. And again, this is keeping in the past trends. These kind of things have happened before. As far as the Home Ministry is concerned, the nodal body that looks into Naxalism as far as policy is concerned, or even operations along with the state governments, obviously is in a huddle as of now, trying to do the postmortems. The Home Minister is on ground, but I can tell you that accountability needs to be fixed whenever something like this happens. There have been several reports in the past that have suggested serious measures, big changes, a revamp on not just operations, but also policy to deal with Naxal insurgency. But it seems because, such attacks happen at intervals, they don't happen every day. That's the reason why they get lost in files somewhere. And what is required is an urgent, action plan.
Absolutely.
To take care of the Naxal problem.
In fact, Abhishek, what we see here in the visuals, bone-chilling. It's unbelievable to even imagine the kind of ammunition the Naxals had. We're looking at operations of rescue that was underway. And these were the shots that we got a little earlier, where several Jawans were injured. Many of them were missing.
आपका भाई, आपका बेटा, आपका भतीजा, हमारे बहुत सारे दोस्त मारे गए हैं, कुछ बचे हुए हैं जो ये हमारे टुआसी सर हैं, हमारे बहुत सारे लोग मारे गए हैं आज। मैं अनिल कुमार दुबे, आपका भाई, आपका बेटा, आपका भतीजा, हमारे बहुत सारे दोस्त मारे गए हैं, कुछ बचे हुए हैं जो जा रहे हैं इलाज के लिए। ये हमारे टुआसी सर हैं, हमारे बहुत सारे लोग मारे गए आज। मैं अनिल कुमार दुबे, आपका भाई, आपका बेटा, आपका भतीजा, हमारे बहुत सारे दोस्त मारे गए हैं। कुछ बचे हुए हैं जो